Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a situation that has sent, well, genuine shockwaves across the globe.
Mm.
It's forcing us to grapple with some really fundamental questions, about geopolitics, the human cost, the very nature of conflict itself.
Yeah.
We've meticulously combed through a stack of sources that lay out a truly unprecedented moment. And our mission, as always, is to sort of extract the most important nuggets of knowledge for you, cutting through the noise.
It's not just complex. It's really a high-stakes turning point. We'll be dissecting the immediate fallout and, maybe more importantly, tracing the historical threads that led us here to this critical juncture.
Right.
We want to go far beyond the headlines to help you understand the deep ripple effects.
Exactly. And the details from our sources are already painting quite a picture.
Yeah.
On June 21st, as night fell in the Middle East, I mean, if you could have imagined that by morning, 3 of Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, would be just engulfed in smoke. Here's where the strategic landscape, well, it truly shifted. The United States, in coordination with Israel, carried out direct military strikes. We're talking advanced stealth bombers, long-range cruise missiles.
Right.
The official line from President Trump was surgical strikes to ensure global safety, dismantle Iran's nuclear capabilities. But the unofficial message, much louder. It wasn't just about destroying facilities. It felt like a declaration. We are no longer operating in the shadows. This is overt. This is, well, by pretty much any definition, war.
And what's truly remarkable, looking at the sources, isn't just the sheer audacity. It's the precision, absolute precision against these targets. Fordow, for instance.
The one buried in the mountain.
Exactly. Long considered untouchable, deep inside a mountain. It was hit with GBU-57s, bunker busters.
Yeah.
These aren't just big bombs. They're America's largest non-nuclear bombs, designed specifically for that penetrating deep underground. That signals an extreme level of commitment, right? Then Natanz, a name we hear often, hit with pinpoint cruise missiles. And Isfahan, the heart of their uranium conversion, heavy damage.
So the timing, the scale.
The coordination.
Yeah.
It all sends a very, very clear message. The U.S. is now fully engaged in a way we really haven't seen before.
Such a brazen act done with that kind of precision. It must have triggered immediate reactions everywhere. You've laid out the technical side. What were the initial shockwaves, say, in Washington and Tehran?
Well, in Washington, you had President Trump addressing the nation just before dawn, reiterating that message. We will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. Not now, not ever. Official, yes, but like you said, the subtext was loud. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the mood was electric. Rage, fear. Iranian state TV playing patriotic anthems, showing flag-waving crowds, broadcasting these stern warnings from military leaders vowing revenge.
What kind of warnings?
The head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard saying, "We reserve all option." Now, in diplomatic and military speak, that's basically a full-spectrum threat, meaning everything's on the table. Conventional strikes, proxy attacks, cyber warfare, you name it. An immediate, unconstrained intent to respond. And not just against American forces. Israel, Saudi Arabia, U.S. bases in Iraq, Syria, all potential targets now.
Which really brings us to the big question. How did we even get here?
Yeah.
This isn't just another flare-up, is it? It feels like the most dangerous escalation between Iran, Israel, and the U.S. in decades. The veil's lifted, the game isn't covert anymore.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating from our sources is how this just fundamentally recalibrates the global deterrence calculation. It signals a willingness to use force against sovereign, fortified nuclear sites. That's a red line rarely crossed. Huge implications for non-proliferation, too.
And it absolutely didn't happen overnight. If we connect the dots, this is the culmination of years of broken diplomacy, deep mistrust, miscalculation.
You mean like a nuclear deal?
Precisely. The Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. It was complex, sure, but it offered a fragile path. Iran agreed to limit its program, accept inspections, in return for sanctions relief.
But then the U.S. pulled out.
Unilaterally, in 2018. And everything started to unravel. Sanctions snapped back. Iran resumed enrichment. Tensions just spiked. Every political cycle, you'd see these flickers of hope for negotiation.
And then they'd fail.
And then they'd fail, pushing us closer and closer to this moment.
And all the while, you, the everyday people, are bearing the cost. The economic toll, the social toll. It's been immense, hasn't it?
Absolutely. In Iran, the economy just crumbled under sanctions. Basic things like medicines became scarce, inflation went through the roof.
Yet the nuclear ambition remained.
It never faded, whether for energy or prestige or deterrence. That dream persisted. For Israel, though, the fear was existential. Every centrifuge in Iran felt like a countdown clock.
And for the U.S.,
Stakes were about credibility, global standing, regional control, trying to manage stability in a very unstable region.
and we often forget, amidst all the strategy talk, the people on the ground, our sources paint a vivid picture. Families in Natanz jolted awake by explosions lighting up the sky.
Yeah. Mothers grabbing children, fathers searching for safe spaces that just aren't there. Nearby villages panic, turning to prayers.
Meanwhile, in Israel, the mood is tense. Daily siren tests, families running through bomb shelter drills again. And across U.S. bases in Iraq, soldiers just waiting, knowing retaliation could come at any second. Every missile has a target, sure, but it also sends out this ripple.
A wave. Fear, displacement, trauma, loss. It spreads so much wider than any map shows. That's the human cost of what we sometimes clinically call strategy.
Yeah.
And this moment isn't isolated, is it? It's happening in a region already cracking under enormous pressure.
Yeah.
You've got the war in Gaza raging for
And
weeks.
Hezbollah threatening a new front in Lebanon.
Airstrikes are routine in Syria, U.S. troops scattered across the region, vulnerable, increasingly at risk. And the Red Sea
Vital shipping lane.
turned into a sort of playground for missile attacks by Iranian-backed Houthi forces. Now, add global powers watching closely Russia, China calculating their next move.
And you start to see why experts are calling this the most dangerous week in the Middle East since, 2003?
Easily.
Yeah.
Maybe even more unpredictable.
And the global consequences hit instantly. Oil prices surged, stock markets dipped. That was predictable. But what was really telling from the sources was the speed and the breadth of the reaction. Governments far away, London, New York, Berlin, calling emergency meetings almost immediately.
Right.
That signals something deeper, doesn't it? A concern about the fragility of the whole international order.
Absolutely. When a nuclear facility gets bombed, the world isn't just watching. It's recognizing that a fundamental norm has been shattered.
So China condemning it, Russia warning of consequences. It's more than just diplomatic noise.
Much more. It signals a deep fracturing, especially within, say, the UN Security Council's ability to respond to unilateral actions like this. It pushes us further into a more multipolar, less predictable world order.
Which brings us to the haunting part. This might not be the climax, it might just be the beginning of something much bigger.
That's the fear. And what's fascinating here is Iran's dilemma. It's wounded, yes, but not broken. The leadership is angry, but likely not out of control. Yeah.
So what do?
Well, that's the profound internal reckoning they face now. History shows regimes in this kind of bind sometimes resort to a diversionary war, maybe, to unify people, or they might radically reevaluate their whole strategy.
It tests their ideology itself.
Deeply. If Iran strikes back, even just symbolically, it could trigger that broader war we talked about. But if it holds back, it risks looking weak, both at home and to its allies. It's a classic no-win scenario.
And desperate moves happen in no-win scenarios.
They do.
The United States says it's not looking for further escalation. But history. Well, history tells us when the shooting starts, intentions can fade pretty quickly. They get swept away.
True.
Israel, meanwhile, has gone quiet, ominously quiet, which often means they're preparing for more. Gulf nations are on high alert. The UN calls for restraint.
But restraint is just a whisper in moments like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Drowned out by the roar for retribution.
So if Iran does retaliate, where does it stop? How far does the U.S. go? Strike again, troops, NATO support.
And if Israel gets hit, will they respond with overwhelming force, potentially pulling Lebanon and Syria right into the fire?
Suddenly, what started as a surgical strike
Could cascade
Yeah.
into a regional inferno. You can plan the first move, maybe, but the second move often belongs to chaos. And through it all, you, the people, just wait and wonder.
Look, we are not here to sensationalize anything. We're here to think. And
No.
thinking right now means going beyond those headlines, asking the harder questions. Could diplomacy have actually worked if it had been given more time, if trust hadn't been so totally eroded? Could global pressure have replaced missile strikes? And if so, what stopped it?
Is security through destruction even sustainable in the long run?
Right. And maybe most importantly, what does this moment say about who we are becoming as a global society?
It really puts a different spin on the word strategy, doesn't it? We live in this world with more tech, more knowledge, more communication than ever before in history. And yet,
We keep going back to the oldest answer.
the oldest, most brutal answer: war. When we're frightened, we attack. When threatened, we strike. When uncertain, we choose the loudest, most aggressive path.
Maybe it's time we question that instinct.
Perhaps. Perhaps it's time we ask why, in a world that feels so advanced in so many ways, peace still feels so elusive, like a dream.
The people of Iran don't want war. The people of Israel don't want war. American families certainly don't want their sons and daughters deployed to distant deserts again. And yet, war finds us over and over.
Is it just power? Is it pride?
Or is it simpler? Have we just forgotten how to imagine anything else and then build it?
The world feels closer to widespread conflict than it has in years. But maybe in that proximity, we're also closer to some kind of clarity.
How so?
We're being forced to ask ourselves, what kind of future are we actually willing to fight for? Is it one where missiles dictate peace? Or is it one where dialogue, empathy, where they dare to rise above?
We might not have the answers yet.
No. But we have the choice to think before the next move, to really feel the ripple effects before we strike again, and to remember, always, that behind every single headline, there are lives, real lives.
Stay safe, stay aware, and keep thinking.